The flames reached for her with hungry, crackling fingers, and Felicity Thorne knew she had seconds left before the burning roof collapsed and buried her alive. She pressed herself against the stone wall of the cellar, lungs screaming for clean air, eyes streaming from the smoke that poured through the gaps in the floorboards above. The village of Ashford was dying. She could hear it, the roar of the inferno, the terrible silence where screams had been moments before, the groan of timbers giving way. Her family's bakery, the bookshop next door, the small church where she'd been baptized, all of it consumed by flames that had appeared without warning, without explanation, spreading faster than any natural fire should. She'd run back inside to save her grandmother's locket, the only thing she had left of her mother. Stupid, so incredibly stupid. Now she was trapped, and the heat was becoming unbearable, and she couldn't stop coughing, couldn't catch her breath. The ceiling cracked. Felicity looked up and saw the wood splitting, embers raining down like falling stars. This was it. 22 years old, and this was how it ended. She closed her eyes and thought of her father already gone in the initial blast that had started all this. At least she'd see him again soon. The ceiling gave way, but instead of crushing weight and burning pain, she felt arms impossibly strong, impossibly cold wrap around her body and lift her as though she weighed nothing. Her eyes flew open. Through the smoke and her tears, she saw him. White hair fell around a face so pale it seemed to glow in the firelight. His eyes were the color of fresh blood, ancient and knowing, fixed on her with an intensity that should have terrified her but somehow didn't. He moved through the flames as though they were nothing, as though the fire that had devoured everything she knew couldn't touch him. His dark coat didn't even singe. "Hold on to me," he said, his voice deep and accented with something old, something that didn't belong to this century, or perhaps even the last. Not a request. A command. Felicity's arms went around his neck on instinct, clinging to him as he strode through the inferno. She buried her face against his chest, feeling the expensive fabric of his shirt, breathing in a scent like winter and old books, and something metallic she couldn't place. He didn't smell like smoke. He didn't smell like anything that belonged in this burning hell. They should have died. The fire was everywhere, a living thing that roared its fury at their escape. But he walked through it as though taking an evening stroll, his steps measured and unhurried, his arms locked around her like iron bands that would never let go. She felt him step over something she didn't want to know if it was debris or something worse, and then the heat began to lessen, the smoke to clear. Cool night air hit her face like a blessing. She gasped, coughing, her lungs burning as they tried to remember how to process clean oxygen. He didn't stop moving, didn't set her down. He carried her away from the village, away from the flames and the death, into the darkness beyond. "Wait." She managed to croak out, "My father, there might be others. There are no others." His voice was flat, certain, final. The words hit her like a physical blow. She twisted in his arms, looking back. Ashford was on fire against the night sky, flames reaching toward the stars. No houses left standing, no movement except the dance of the fire. The smoke formed a pillar that blocked out the moon. "No," she whispered. "No, that can't." Mrs. Chen from the grocery and the Paulson family with their 3 kids, and gone. He didn't soften it, didn't try to cushion the blow. "I arrived too late to save them, but I saved you, saved her." This stranger with his impossible strength and his blood-red eyes had saved her. She should ask why, should demand he put her down, should be frightened of him and what he was, because he was clearly not human. That much was obvious, but she couldn't seem to find the fear. Maybe she was in shock. Maybe she'd breathed in too much smoke and her brain wasn't working properly. Or maybe it was because when everyone else had been dying, when she'd been dying, he'd walked through fire for her. He carried her for what felt like miles, moving at a pace that should have been impossible. His breathing never changing, his arms never tiring. Felicity's coughs gradually subsided, though her throat still felt like she'd swallowed broken glass. She didn't know what to say, didn't know what to think. Her entire world had just burned down, and she was being carried through the night by a man who shouldn't exist. Finally, he slowed. They'd reached the old highway that ran past Ashford, or what used to be past Ashford. A black car waited there, sleek and expensive and utterly out of place on the rural road. He opened the back door with one hand, still holding her with the other, and deposited her gently on the leather seat. Only then did he release her. Felicity immediately felt the loss of his arms, the cold that rushed in to replace his presence. She looked up at him, standing there in the moonlight, and for the first time got a clear view of her rescuer. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with a lean build that somehow suggested coiled strength. His white hair was pulled back from his face, revealing features that were almost too perfect: sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled. His skin was so pale it was almost translucent, and those eyes, those impossible red eyes, studied her with an expression she couldn't read. He was beautiful, terrifying, otherworldly. "What are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. A slight curve touched his lips, not quite a smile, but close. You know what I am. You're intelligent enough to have guessed by now. Vampire. The word rose in her mind, ridiculous and impossible, and yet the only explanation that made sense. Vampires were real. Vampires were real, and one of them had just carried her out of a burning village. Why? She asked. Why did you save me? His expression shifted, became unreadable. Because you belong to me, Felicity Thorne. You have from the moment you were born. I've been watching over you for years, waiting. Tonight, when the hunters came for your village, I couldn't let them take you. Hunters. The word echoed in her mind, trying to find purchase. Hunters did this, hunters set the fire, they were looking for something. Information about my kind. Your father, he paused, studying her face. Your father was a scholar. Did you know he'd spent years researching vampire history? He'd uncovered things, dangerous things. They came to silence him and destroy his research. The fire was meant to look like an accident. Felicity's mind reeled. Her father, a baker, had been researching vampires. It seemed insane. But then, everything seemed insane right now. He never said anything I didn't know. He was protecting you. Unfortunately, his secrecy didn't save him in the end. Or anyone else in Ashford. The vampire's jaw tightened, the first real emotion she'd seen from him. I should have been there sooner. You said I belonged to you. Felicity said, her brain latching onto the one thing she could process. What does that mean? It means you're under my protection now. It means I will never let harm come to you again. It means. He reached out, his pale hand cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness. His skin was cool, but not unpleasantly so. It means you're mine, Felicity, and I take care of what's mine. She should pull away, should be afraid. Should demand answers and explanations and probably scream. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch, this stranger who'd appeared from nowhere and given her back her life. I don't even know your name, she said. Hadrian Wulfric. I am the Vampire King of the Eastern Territories. He said it simply, without arrogance, just stating a fact. And you, Felicity Thorne, are going to come with me now. There's nothing left for you here. The hunters will return to search the ruins, and when they discover your body isn't among the dead, they'll come looking. I won't give them the chance to finish what they started. The Vampire King, she'd been saved by the Vampire King. Felicity wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, but she was afraid if she started, she'd never stop. Everything was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. Where are you taking me? Home, Hadrian said. My home. You'll be safe there. No hunter can reach you within my domain. He straightened, moving to walk around to the driver's side, and that's when she noticed something. You're hurt. He paused, glancing down at his arm. His coat sleeve was torn, and beneath it she could see angry red burns across his forearm. Burns from the fire he'd walked through to save her. It's nothing, he said dismissively. It will heal. You said the fire couldn't hurt you. I said no such thing. I simply walked through it anyway. His red eyes met hers, and something in them made her breath catch. You were inside. Nothing else mattered. He got into the car before she could respond, and moments later they were moving, leaving Ashford and everything she'd ever known burning behind them. Felicity twisted in her seat, watching through the rear window until the flames disappeared from view, swallowed by the darkness in the distance. Tears finally came then, hot and bitter, sliding down her smoke-stained cheeks. Her father was dead, her home was gone. Everyone she'd ever known had been murdered by hunters she hadn't known existed, because of research she'd never known her father was conducting, in a war between species she'd never known was being fought. I know this is difficult, Hadrian said from the front seat, his eyes on the road. I know you're grieving and confused and probably terrified, even if you're too stubborn to show it. But I promise you, Felicity, you are safe now. I will protect you. No one will hurt you again. You can't promise that, she said, her voice breaking. You can't know that. I can, and I do. There was absolute certainty in his voice. I am over 800 years old. I have ruled my territory for 5 centuries. I have fought in wars you cannot imagine and survived enemies who make human hunters look like children with toys. No one will touch you. Not while I draw breath. The conviction in his words should have sounded like arrogance. Instead, it sounded like an oath, a vow. Felicity found herself believing him, this ancient creature who'd walked through fire for her and emerged carrying her like she was precious, like she was worth saving. She curled up on the leather seat, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her hollow and aching. Her eyes drifted closed despite her best efforts to stay awake, to stay alert in the presence of a vampire who claimed she belonged to him. The last thing she felt before sleep claimed her was a soft fabric being draped over her Hadrian's coat, still somehow not smelling of smoke, carrying that winter and old books scent. The last thing she heard was his voice, barely above a murmur. Sleep, little one. I won't let anything happen to you, not ever again. When Felicity woke, she wasn't in the car anymore. She was in a bed, a massive, incredibly soft bed with silk sheets and thick blankets that felt like they cost more than her entire house had. The room around her was enormous, decorated in deep burgundies and blacks, with antique furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Tall windows showed a night sky, stars scattered like diamonds across black velvet. She sat up slowly, her body protesting. Everything hurt her lungs, her throat, her muscles. She was wearing different clothes, she realized. A soft nightgown in pale gray, nothing she'd ever owned. Someone had changed her while she slept. The thought should have alarmed her, but the nightgown was modest and she was clean. The smoke and ash washed away from her skin and hair. A knock sounded at the door. "Come in," she called, her voice still hoarse. The door opened, but it wasn't Hadrian who entered. It was a woman, small and elegant, with the same pale skin and white hair as the Vampire King. Her eyes were a lighter red, almost pink, and she carried herself with the grace of a dancer. "Good, you're awake," the woman said with a slight smile. "His Majesty has been pacing like a caged wolf since we arrived. I'm Seraphine, one of Lord Hadrian's court. I've been asked to see to your needs." "Where am I?" "The Obsidian Palace, the seat of the Eastern Vampire Court." Seraphine moved to the windows, pulling back heavy curtains to reveal an incredible view. They were high up, Felicity realized. Very high up. She could see a city spread out below, glittering with lights, but it looked wrong somehow. The architecture was a mix of modern and ancient glass buildings alongside stone towers, and the streets seemed to glow with a faint luminescence that had nothing to do with streetlights. "That's the Undercity," Seraphine explained. "The vampire realm beneath the human world. Few mortals ever see it. You should feel honored." "I should feel a lot of things," Felicity muttered. "Honored isn't really making the list." Seraphine's smile widened. "I can see why he chose you. Most humans in your position would be cowering or weeping." "You're made of sterner stuff. I cried plenty in the car," Felicity admitted. "I think I'm all out of tears now, just numb. Grief will do that." Seraphine's expression softened with what looked like genuine sympathy. "I heard about Ashford. I'm sorry. The hunters have become bolder lately, more vicious. We've all lost people to their crusade. Hadrian said my father was researching vampires. That's why they came. Marcus Thorne was a good man, brave to pursue truth when he knew it could cost him everything." Seraphine settled into a chair near the bed. "He'd made contact with our court several years ago, shared information in exchange for protection for you and your village. His Majesty took that agreement seriously, but the hunters came anyway. They found out about the arrangement, probably through a traitor in our ranks or a spy among the humans Marcus trusted. These things happen, unfortunately. War is never clean." Seraphine leaned forward. "But you're here now and you're safe. His Majesty will see to that personally." "I've never seen him so invested in protecting someone before." Felicity thought about those arms carrying her through fire, about the burns on Hadrian's skin, about his voice promising her safety with absolute conviction. "He said I belonged to him, that I've belonged to him since I was born." What did he mean? Seraphine hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "That's something you should discuss with His Majesty directly. It's not my place to explain his connection to you. But I will say this: Hadrian Wulfric has ruled for 500 years with an iron perfect logic. He doesn't act on emotion, he doesn't form attachments lightly. The fact that he claimed you, that he burned himself carrying you from that fire, that he brought you to his private palace, rather than just setting you up somewhere safe in the human world, that means something significant." Before Felicity could press for more information, another knock sounded at the door. This one was heavier, more commanding. "Enter, Your Majesty," Seraphine called, rising from her chair with a graceful curtsy. Hadrian walked in, and Felicity's breath caught. He'd changed clothes, now wearing all black tailored pants, a shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal those burned forearms that looked better than they had but still not fully healed. His white hair was loose around his shoulders now, making him look younger somehow, though his eyes were still ancient and knowing. Those blood-red eyes went straight to her, scanning her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "You're well?" he asked. "I'm alive, thanks to you." Felicity pushed the blankets back, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. "Seraphine says my father was in contact with your court, that he had an agreement with you." "He did. 5 years ago he discovered a text in an estate sale, a journal from a 17th century vampire hunter. He brought it to me thinking I should know what was in it. Strategies for attacking vampire strongholds, names of other hunters, locations of weapons caches, information that could have gotten my people killed. Instead of using it or selling it, he gave it to me freely, asking only that I help protect his village from the growing violence between our worlds." Hadrian moved closer, his movements fluid and predatory despite their grace. "I agreed. I sent guards to watch over Ashford, to warn me of any hunter activity in the area. It worked for 5 years. Your father continued his research, shared what he learned with me, and I kept my people from feeding in or near your village. Everyone was safe, everyone was protected. Until last night." "Until last night," he agreed, and she could hear the anger beneath his controlled tone. "The guards were killed first, quietly, before they could send warning. The attack was coordinated and swift. By the time I felt the disturbance and arrived, the village was already burning. I searched every building, but you were the only one left alive." His jaw clenched. "I failed your father. I failed my promise to him. I won't fail you." Seraphine cleared her throat softly. "I'll give you privacy, Your Majesty. Felicity, call if you need anything. I'll be just down the hall." She slipped out, closing the door behind her with a soft click. Suddenly alone with the Vampire King, Felicity found herself very aware of how little her nightgown covered, of how he was looking at her like she was the most important thing in the room, in the world. "Tell me the truth," she said, lifting her chin. "Why did you really save me? It wasn't just because of some agreement with my father. You said I belonged to you. Explain that." Hadrian was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he sighed, a very human sound from a very inhuman creature. "Do you know what a blood bond is?" "No, it's rare, incredibly rare. It happens when a vampire encounters someone whose blood calls to them in a way that transcends hunger or desire. A person whose very existence resonates with theirs on a level that defies explanation. It's not love, not at first, it's recognition. It's knowing that this person is meant to be yours, that they're important to your existence in a way that goes beyond reason or logic." He moved closer still, until he was standing directly in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "I felt it the first time I met your father, when he brought me that journal. Your scent was on his clothes. You'd hugged him goodbye that morning. Something in me woke up, something I hadn't felt in 8 centuries of existence. I asked about you, and he told me about his daughter, 22 years old at the time, who loved books and helped run the bakery and took care of the village children when their parents needed help." "You've been watching me for 5 years?" The thought should have creeped her out, but it didn't. Somehow knowing he'd been there, keeping her safe from the shadows, was comforting. "Watching over you," Hadrian corrected. "Making sure you were safe, making sure you were happy." Your father knew. He approved. He understood that when the time was right, when the world became too dangerous or when you were ready, I would claim you properly, bring you into my world. And last night, when the hunters came, the world became too dangerous. His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek with that same gentle touch from before. "I couldn't lose you, Felicity. I've been alone for so long, ruling with logic and strategy and cold calculation. And then your scent reached me, and everything changed. You changed me without even knowing I existed." Felicity's heart was pounding, her thoughts spinning. This was insane. All of it was insane. But looking into his eyes, seeing the truth there, the vulnerability beneath the ancient power, she found herself believing him, believing in this impossible bond he described. "I don't know you," she whispered. "Then get to know me. You're safe here, Felicity. You have time. We have time. I'm not asking you to love me or accept this bond immediately. I'm asking you to stay, to let me protect you, to give us a chance." She thought about going back to the human world, alone, everyone she'd ever known dead, starting over with nothing and no one. She thought about the hunters who'd killed her village, who might still be looking for her. And she thought about the way Hadrian had walked through fire for her, the way his arms had held her like she was precious, the way he looked at her now like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for centuries. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll stay, for now. But I want answers, Hadrian, about everything. About vampires, about the hunters, about this blood bond thing. No secrets." Something like relief flickered across his perfect features. "No secrets," he agreed. "Ask me anything and I'll tell you the truth. First question, do those burns hurt?" He glanced down at his forearms, seeming to have forgotten them. "Yes, fire is one of the few things that can truly harm my kind. These will take several days to heal completely. Can I see them?" Hadrian extended his arms, letting her examine the damage. The skin was raw and blistered in places, though clearly better than it had been hours ago. Without thinking, Felicity reached out, her fingers hovering over the wounds. "You did this for me," she said quietly. "You hurt yourself to save me. I would do it again." His voice was absolute. "I would walk through 1,000 fires for you, Felicity. That's what the blood bond means. That's what you are to me." She looked up at him, this ancient vampire king who'd turned his world upside down for a human girl he'd never even spoken to before last night. And maybe it was gratitude, or maybe it was shock, or maybe it was something deeper, something she wasn't ready to name yet. But she found herself wanting to understand this bond he spoke of, wanting to explore this connection that had brought them together. "Show me your world," she said. "Show me everything. Help me understand." Hadrian's expression transformed, a smile breaking across his face, genuine and warm and breathtaking. Over the next few weeks, Hadrian kept his promise. He showed Felicity the Undercity, the hidden vampire realm that existed beneath the human world. They walked through streets where the sun never reached, where elegant vampires moved through markets selling everything from ancient books to fresh blood in crystal bottles. He took her to the grand hall where his court assembled, where vampire nobles from across the eastern territories came to pledge loyalty and settle disputes. He explained the rules of his world, how vampires could move freely at night but were trapped by the sun, how they aged slowly but could be killed by fire, sunlight, or a stake through the heart, how they needed blood to survive but could choose their sources, taking only from willing donors or from blood banks maintained by vampire society, how there were laws, ancient and strictly enforced, that governed their interactions with humans. "We're not monsters," Hadrian told her one evening as they stood out on a balcony overlooking the Undercity, the eternal night sky above them sprinkled with stars. "We can be if we choose, but so can humans. We simply live longer and require blood to survive. Beyond that, we feel everything you feel: love, grief, joy, anger. We're simply better at controlling our emotions, except when it comes to blood bonds," Felicity asked, glancing at him with a slight smile. "Except then," he agreed. "Those tend to override our legendary control rather spectacularly." She laughed, and the sound made him smile in return. It was getting easier being around him. The initial shock had faded, and underneath it, she was discovering a person she genuinely liked. Hadrian was intelligent and well-read, with centuries of experience and stories to share. He was patient with her questions, never dismissing her concerns or making her feel stupid for not understanding vampire culture. He was surprisingly funny in a dry, subtle way that caught her off guard and made her laugh. And he was protective to a degree that would have been suffocating if it didn't feel so genuinely caring. He accompanied her everywhere in the Undercity, his presence a clear signal to every vampire they encountered that she was under his personal protection. When she expressed interest in the massive library in the palace, he immediately granted her unlimited access and assigned her a suite of rooms adjacent to it. When she mentioned missing fresh bread, he hired a human baker to work in the palace kitchen specifically to make sure she had whatever she wanted. "You're spoiling me," she protested after he presented her with an entire wardrobe of clothes in her size. Everything from casual wear to elegant gowns that looked like they belonged in a period drama. "I'm taking care of you," he corrected. "There's a difference. You lost everything, Felicity. I want you to have whatever you need to feel comfortable here, to feel at home." Home. The word was starting to fit. She'd been in the Obsidian Palace for 3 weeks now, and while she still missed her father with an ache that wouldn't fade, she was adjusting to this strange new life. The vampires of Hadrian's court had accepted her presence with surprising ease, treating her with respect because their king clearly valued her. Seraphine had become a friend, teaching her about vampire politics and gossiping about court drama like they were college roommates. And Hadrian was becoming something she didn't have a name for yet, more than a protector, more than a friend. The blood bond he'd described was real, she could feel it. There was a pull between them, a awareness that made her constantly conscious of where he was in a room, that made her heart beat faster when he looked at her. She was starting to fall for him, she realized. This ancient, powerful vampire king who'd walked through fire for her and then gave her the time and space to heal, to adjust, to decide what she wanted. The realization both thrilled and terrified her. "Felicity." She looked up from the book she'd been pretending to read in the library to find Hadrian standing in the doorway, his expression grave. "What's wrong?" "We have a problem. The hunters who destroyed Ashford have been tracked to a compound about 200 miles from here. My people have been monitoring them, waiting for the right moment to strike. But we've just learned they're planning another attack. A vampire settlement on the border of my territory, scheduled for tomorrow night." Felicity closed her book, her stomach clenching. "How many vampires live there?" "Around 50, including children." Hadrian's jaw was tight with anger. "These hunters have declared war on my kind. They've been systematically targeting smaller settlements, places they think we won't defend as fiercely. They're wrong. You're going after them." "I have to. I won't let them murder more innocent people, vampire or human." He moved closer, crouching down so they were eye level. "I'll be gone for a day, maybe 2. You'll be safe here. I'm leaving Seraphine and a full guard detail to protect you." Fear clutched at her chest, not for herself, but for him. It could be a trap. They could be expecting you. Almost certainly. But that doesn't change what I have to do. His hand came up, cupping her face. "I need to know you'll be all right while I'm gone." "I'm not the one riding off to fight hunters," Felicity pointed out. "You're the one who needs to be careful. You're not invincible, Hadrian. Fire can hurt you. So can stakes and sunlight and probably a dozen other things. Are you worried about me?" There was something pleased in his tone and his expression. "Of course I'm worried about you, you stubborn vampire. You saved my life. I'd rather you didn't get yourself killed now." "Is that the only reason you're worried?" He leaned closer, his red eyes searching hers. "Because I saved you?" Her heart was pounding now, her breath coming faster. They were so close, closer than they'd ever been, and she could feel the pull between them like a physical thing, the blood bond he'd described singing in her veins. "No," she whispered. "That's not the only reason. Tell me." His thumb brushed across her cheek, his touch achingly gentle. "Tell me why you're worried, Felicity." "Because I care about you. Because these past few weeks have been, I've gotten to know you. The real you, not just the powerful vampire king but the person underneath. You're kind and funny and patient, and you've given me time to grieve and adjust when you could have demanded I just accept this bond. And she took a shaky breath. I'm falling for you, Hadrian. I don't think I can stop it. I'm not sure I want to. The smile that broke across his face was radiant, transforming him from ancient and intimidating to almost boyish in his joy. You have no idea how long I've wanted to hear you say that, so don't get yourself killed fighting hunters, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Come back to me, please, always. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers, his cool skin against her warmth. I will always come back to you, Felicity, that's a promise. The blood bond won't let me stay away even if I wanted to, which I absolutely don't. She kissed him. She didn't plan it, didn't think about it, just closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his. He went still for a heartbeat, surprised, and then his arms wrapped around her and he was kissing her back with a gentle intensity that made her head spin. His lips were cool but not cold, firm and skilled, moving against hers with centuries of experience behind them. But there was nothing practiced about the way he held her, nothing calculated. This was raw emotion, controlled only by his iron will and his obvious desire not to overwhelm her. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard despite the fact that he didn't technically need to breathe, Hadrian rested his forehead against hers again. I've waited 5 years to do that, he murmured. Was it worth the wait? Beyond measure. He pulled back slightly, his red eyes glowing in the library's soft light. When I return, we need to talk. About us, about the future, about what you want from this bond, but right now I need to go. My people are waiting, and every moment I delay is another moment the hunters have to prepare. Be careful, Felicity said, her hand catching his. Be smart, and come home, I will. He kissed her once more, quick and fierce, then pulled away.
I will come home to you.
She watched him leave, her lips still tingling from his kiss, her heart in her throat. The library felt too empty without him, the palace too quiet. She'd lived her whole life in Ashford without knowing Hadrian existed, and now the thought of him being gone for even a day or two felt unbearable. The blood bond, she realized. This was what he'd been feeling for 5 years, this pull, this need, this certainty that they belonged together. And now she was starting to feel it too. Seraphine found her an hour later, still sitting in the library, staring at nothing. He'll be fine, the vampire woman said gently, settling into the chair Hadrian had vacated. He's the strongest vampire in the Eastern Territories, possibly in the world. These hunters don't stand a chance. But he can still be hurt. He's not invincible. No, but he's smart and experienced, and he'll have 50 of our best warriors with him. And more importantly, he has something to come back to now, you. Seraphine smiled. That makes him more dangerous than ever. A vampire with something to lose fights twice as hard to stay alive. Felicity hoped she was right. The day passed slowly. Then the night. Felicity tried to distract herself with books, with exploring more of the palace, with talking to Seraphine and the other vampires of the court. But her mind kept drifting back to Hadrian, wondering where he was, if he was safe, if the hunters had trapped him somehow. The second day was worse. Every shadow seemed threatening, every sound made her jump. The guards Hadrian had left behind were vigilant, but offered no news. They didn't know anything more than she did. It was late on the second night when she felt it, a sharp, sudden pain in her chest that made her gasp and double over. Something was wrong. She could feel it through the blood bond, could feel Hadrian's pain echoing in her own body. Seraphine, she called out, stumbling from her room into the hallway. Something's wrong with Hadrian. The vampire appeared instantly, her expression alarmed. What do you mean? I can feel him. He's hurt, something's happened. The pain was fading now, but the certainty remained. We have to help him. Seraphine's face went pale. The bond shouldn't be strong enough for you to feel him yet. Not unless, she didn't finish the sentence, but her expression said everything. Not unless he was seriously injured or dying. Get me to him, Felicity demanded. Now. I don't care how dangerous it is, I need to get to him. Felicity, I can't. His Majesty gave strict orders to keep you here, safe in the palace. If something's happened to him, the last thing he'd want is for you to put yourself in danger. I don't care what he wants, Felicity's voice broke. He's hurt, maybe dying, and I can't just sit here doing nothing. Please, Seraphine, if you care about him at all, help me get to him. The vampire woman studied her for a long moment, conflict clear on her face, then she sighed. He's going to kill me for this, if he survives to do it. Come on, we need to move fast. I'll take a team with us, no way I'm letting you walk into a war zone without serious backup. 20 minutes later, Felicity was in a car with Seraphine and 6 vampire warriors, racing through the night toward the hunter compound. Seraphine had made contact with the team that had gone with Hadrian, and the news was bad. The hunters had been ready for them, had somehow gotten their hands on UV grenades and flamethrowers. 3 vampires were dead, a dozen more injured, and Hadrian had been caught in an explosion that had set him on fire. They'd gotten the flames out, but the damage was severe. He was alive but barely, his body struggling to heal from burns that covered most of his chest and arms. The team had fallen back to a safe location a few miles from the compound, waiting for reinforcements and medical help. Felicity felt like she couldn't breathe. Hadrian, who'd walked through fire for her without hesitation, was now dying because of flames. The universe had a cruel sense of irony. "Faster," she urged Seraphine, who was driving like she was in a street race, the car whipping around corners and pushing well past any safe speed. "I'm going as fast as I can without wrapping us around a tree," Seraphine said grimly. "We'll be there in 5 minutes." Those 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. When they finally screeched to a stop outside what looked like an abandoned warehouse, Felicity was out of the car before it had fully stopped moving. She ran inside, following the sounds of voices and the smell of, oh God, was that burned flesh? The vampires had set up a makeshift medical area in the warehouse's main room. And there, on a table that was far too small for his tall frame, was Hadrian. His shirt had been cut away, revealing the extent of the burns. They covered his chest, his arms, his neck, the skin blackened and blistered an angry red. His white hair was singed, and his face was pale even for a vampire, his eyes closed. "Hadrian!" Felicity rushed to his side, her hand reaching for his before she remembered he was burned there too. She settled for touching his face, the one place that seemed mostly uninjured. "Hadrian, please, can you hear me?" His eyes opened slowly, those red irises unfocused and hazy with pain. "Felicity?" His voice was barely a whisper. You shouldn't be here, not safe." "I don't care about safe, you're hurt. I felt it through the bond." Tears were streaming down her face now. "What happened?" "Trap," he managed. "They were ready. UV weapons, fire. Lost 3 of my people. The others," he coughed and the sound was wet and painful, "got most of the humans out of the settlement before the hunters could reach them. Mission successful." "You're dying and you're talking about the mission being successful?" Felicity wanted to scream. "Hadrian, you need blood, you need to heal." "What do you need?" "Time," Seraphine said quietly from behind her. "His body will heal, but burns this severe take days even for someone as powerful as him. We need to get him back to the palace, into a proper medical bay with support. Then let's move him. It's too dangerous. The hunters are still active in the area, and moving him could make the injuries worse." Seraphine looked frustrated and worried. "We're stuck here until dawn, when the hunters will have to pull back. Then we can transport him safely." Dawn was hours away. Felicity looked at Hadrian's burned body, at the pain etched into every line of his face, and made a decision. "He needs blood to heal, right? Take mine." Every vampire in the warehouse went silent, staring at her. "Absolutely not," Hadrian rasped, trying to sit up and failing. Won't risk you. You're dying. I'm not going to watch you die because you're too noble to feed from me." Felicity turned to Seraphine. "Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that vampire blood or blood from a bag would work just as well as fresh human blood from someone he's bonded to." Seraphine looked torn. "You're not wrong. Blood from his bonded would be the most powerful healing agent available. But Felicity, you don't understand what you're offering. When a vampire feeds from their bond, especially for the first time, it creates a deeper connection. It's intimate and intense, and I don't care. If it saves him, I don't care." Felicity looked back at Hadrian, at his beautiful, damaged face. "Please, let me help you. Let me save you this time. Felicity." His hand moved, just slightly, reaching for hers. She caught it gently, careful of the burns. "The bond will become permanent. Unbreakable. You'll be tied to me for the rest of your life." "Good." The word came out fierce, certain. "I want to be tied to you. I've spent 3 weeks falling for you, Hadrian. I'm not going to lose you now, so stop being stubborn and bite me." A choked sound that might have been a laugh came from his burned throat. "So bossy. When did you become so bossy?" "When the vampire I love decided to be a martyr. Now do it before I change my mind and get scared." His eyes locked on hers, suddenly more focused. "You love me?" "I love you, you idiot. Now please, please let me save you." Hadrian's resistance crumbled. "Help me sit up," he said to the vampires hovering nearby. Carefully. It took 3 of them to get him upright, and the pain it caused him was obvious. But once he was sitting, he reached for Felicity, pulling her gently onto his lap, positioning her so her neck was exposed and accessible, but he wasn't putting pressure on his burned chest. "This will hurt," he warned, his lips brushing her throat. "Just for a moment. Then it will feel good, I promise. I trust you." His fangs slid into her neck with a sharp, bright pain that made her gasp. But he was right within seconds. The pain faded, replaced by a warmth that spread through her entire body. It felt intimate, this sharing of her blood, more intimate than anything she'd ever experienced. She could feel him drinking, feel her life force flowing into him, and beneath that she could feel the bond between them solidifying, becoming permanent and unbreakable. She could feel his emotions now, his pain, yes, but also his love for her, overwhelming and absolute. His gratitude, his protectiveness, his devotion. 5 years of watching over her, caring for her from the shadows, all of it flowing through the bond like a river. And she poured her own feelings back, letting him feel her love, her fear for him, her determination to save him no matter what it cost. Time seemed to stop. There was only the two of them, connected in the most primal way possible, sharing blood and emotion and soul. She felt dizzy, lightheaded, but she didn't tell him to stop. She'd give him every drop if it meant he'd survive. Finally, he pulled back, his fangs retracting. He licked the puncture wounds on her neck, and she felt them close, healing instantly under his saliva. Then he pulled her against him, cradling her close despite the pain it must have caused. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "My brave, foolish, wonderful mate, thank you. Are you healed?" She felt exhausted, drained, but she needed to know. "Healing. I can already feel the difference. Your blood is." He didn't finish, but she felt his awe through the bond. "You saved my life, Felicity. You gave me life itself. Good, now we're even." She smiled against his shoulder, her eyes drifting closed. "You walked through fire for me. I bled for you. We make a good team, the best team." His arms tightened around her, and she felt his healing speeding up, the bond transferring her strength to him. "Rest now. I have you. I'll always have you." She slept in his arms while his body healed, while the warehouse filled with the pre-dawn light that made all the vampires except Hadrian retreat to the shadows. She slept through the transport back to the palace, through being tucked into his massive bed, through the hushed conferences of doctors and court members. When she woke, it was to find Hadrian beside her, propped up on pillows, looking infinitely better than he had. The burns on his chest and arms were still visible but healing, the skin knitting itself back together in a way that should have been impossible. His color was better, his eyes clear and focused, and he was looking at her like she'd hung the stars. "Hello," he said softly. "Hi." Her voice was hoarse, her body weak. "Did it work? Are you okay?" "More than okay. I'll be fully healed in another day or two, thanks to you." His hand found hers, threading their fingers together. "How do you feel?" "Tired, weak, but okay, I think." She paused, feeling something different inside her. "I can feel you, your emotions, your presence. It's like you're part of me now." The completed bond. "It goes both ways. You can feel me, and I can feel you, always." He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "I'm sorry you had to see me like that. Sorry you had to make such a huge decision under pressure." "I'm not sorry. I'd do it again." She met his eyes, letting him feel the truth of it through their bond. "I meant what I said, Hadrian. I love you. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I love you. You saved me from the fire, and then you gave me time to heal and adjust and find myself again. You showed me your world, answered all my questions, and never once pressured me to accept the bond. You let me choose, and I'm choosing you." The smile that transformed his face was brilliant, joy radiating through their bond so powerfully it brought fresh tears to her eyes. "I love you too, Felicity Thorne. I've loved you since the moment your scent reached me 5 years ago, and I'll love you for the rest of my very long life. However much of that life you'll give me." "All of it," she said without hesitation. "I want all of it, whatever that means." Hadrian shifted, pulling her closer, arranging them so she was tucked against his side with her head on his shoulder. "It means you stay with me, here in the Undercity as my mate and my partner. It means I protect you and care for you and love you for as long as you'll have me. And it means," he paused, his tone becoming serious, "it means eventually, if you want, I can offer you a choice. Vampires can turn humans. It's rare, dangerous, and not something to be done lightly. But if you want to stay with me for more than a human lifetime, if you want to become like me, it's possible. Become a vampire." The thought should have terrified her, but it didn't. Instead, she found herself considering it seriously, imagining a life of centuries instead of decades, imagining growing old while Hadrian stayed forever young, imagining losing him to time. "I'll think about it," she said honestly. "It's a big decision. But Hadrian, I'm not saying no. Just not yet. Let me adjust to all of this first. To being bonded, to living in the Undercity, to being the mate of the Vampire King, then we can talk about forever. That's all I ask, time for you to be sure." He kissed the top of her head. "We have time, my love, all the time you need." They stayed like that for a while, wrapped in each other and the bond between them, comfortable in the silence. Finally, Felicity spoke again. "What about the hunters, the ones who attacked you?" Hadrian's expression darkened. "Dead, all of them. When they set off that explosion, they didn't realize they'd trapped themselves in the compound with 50 very angry vampires. We made sure they can't hurt anyone else." Good. She should feel bad about being glad people were dead, but she couldn't find it in herself. These were the same hunters who'd murdered her father, who'd burned her village, who'd killed innocent vampires just for existing. The world was better without them. "The war isn't over," Hadrian continued. "There are more hunter organizations out there, and tensions between vampires and humans are high. But we sent a message attack, my people, and there will be consequences. Maybe it will make them think twice before the next assault. Or maybe it will make them more determined, perhaps. But now I have something worth fighting for beyond duty and territory. I have you." His arm tightened around her. and I will burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you again." The intensity in his voice and the bond should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel safe, cherished, protected. This ancient, powerful vampire king had chosen her, loved her, would go to war for her, and she loved him back with the same fierce intensity. Over the following months, Felicity settled fully into her new life. She became a fixture in the Obsidian Palace and the Undercity, learning vampire politics and culture, making friends among Hadrian's court. She helped establish a program for other humans who'd been caught in the crossfire between vampires and hunters, offering them sanctuary and support in the Undercity. Hadrian ruled with her at his side, valuing her perspective and insights, trusting her judgment. She attended council meetings, offered opinions on policies, and gradually became recognized as the Lady of the Eastern Territories, the Vampire King's mate and partner in all things. Their bond grew deeper with each passing day. She learned to read his moods through their connection, could find him anywhere in the palace just by following the pull of the bond. He learned her tells, her preferences, the small things that made her happy. They were becoming one unit, two halves of a whole that fit together perfectly. The nightmares came sometimes, dreams of fire and smoke in her father's face. But Hadrian was always there when she woke, holding her, soothing her, reminding her that she was safe, that she'd survived, that she had a future bright and full of possibility with him. A year after the fire that destroyed Ashford, Felicity stood on the balcony overlooking the Undercity with Hadrian beside her. The eternal night sky glittered with stars, and below them the city teemed with life, vampire life. Yes, but life nonetheless, a whole world she'd never known existed, now her home. "Are you happy?" Hadrian asked, his arm around her waist. "Very," she answered honestly. "I miss my father, miss the life I had before, but this us, it's good, better than good. I love you, and I love this life we're building together. I have something for you." He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring. Not a diamond, but something better, a blood-red ruby set in white gold, glowing in the starlight. In vampire culture, mates exchange rings when they're ready to make their bond public and permanent. "This ring means you're mine, and I'm yours for all the world to see. Will you wear it, Felicity?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. Then he produced a second ring, simpler but matching, and handed it to her. "This one's for me," he said with a soft smile, "if you'll do the honors." Her hands shook slightly as she took the ring and slipped it onto his finger, completing the set. The moment it was in place, she felt something shift in the bond, a deepening, a solidifying, a sense of permanent commitment that went beyond words. "Forever," she whispered. "Forever," he agreed, pulling her into a kiss that tasted of love and promises and the future they'd build together. 2 years after that, Felicity made her choice. She'd lived fully as a human in the Undercity, had experienced everything she wanted to experience, had no regrets or unfinished business, and she was ready for forever, ready to stand beside Hadrian not just as his human mate but as his equal in every way. The transformation was painful, 3 days of agony as her body died and was reborn as something new. But Hadrian never left her side, holding her through the pain, feeding her his blood, whispering encouragement and love through their bond. When she woke on the 4th day, the world was different. Sharper, clearer, more vivid. She could hear heartbeats from streets away, could smell individual scents in the air, could see in perfect clarity despite the darkness of the room. And she was strong. She felt like she could lift a car, could run faster than any human, could fight and defend herself in ways she'd never imagined. She looked at her reflection and saw pale skin, white blonde hair that had changed during the transformation, and eyes that glowed with a soft red light. She looked like Hadrian now, like she belonged to his world in every way. "Beautiful," Hadrian said from behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist as they both looked at her reflection. "You're absolutely beautiful, my love." "I'm a vampire," she said, testing the words. They felt right. "True. You're my vampire," he corrected. "My mate, my partner, my queen. Forever, just like we promised." Queen. The title fit better now that she was immortal, now that she could truly stand beside him as an equal. The vampire king and his queen ruling together, they had centuries ahead of them now. Centuries to love each other, to build their kingdom, to make the Undercity a place where vampires could live safely and prosper. The war with the hunters continued, would probably continue for years or decades to come. But they'd face it together, bonded and united, two halves of a whole that nothing could break. Felicity thought about that night 3 years ago, when flames had swallowed her village and a vampire king had carried her through the fire. She'd lost everything that night, her home, her father, her old life. But she'd gained something too. Purpose, love, a future she'd never dreamed possible. Hadrian had carried her through the fire and never set her down. He'd held her through the grief and the adjustment and the transformation, supporting her always, loving her constantly. And now she was strong enough to walk beside him, to share his burdens, to face whatever came next as his equal. "What are you thinking?" he asked, sensing her contemplation through their bond. "I'm thinking that the best thing that ever happened to me was the worst night of my life," she said honestly. "I'm thinking that I'd go through it all again if it meant ending up here with you. I'm thinking that I'm grateful for the fire because it brought me home." Hadrian turned her to face him, his red eyes glowing with emotion. "You are my home, Felicity. You've been my home since the moment I scented you on your father's clothes. Everything I am, everything I have, it's all yours, and everything I am is yours," she responded, the ancient vampire vow that sealed their bond completely. "Forever and always, through fire and darkness and whatever comes. I'm yours, Hadrian." "Mine," he agreed, pulling her into a kiss that sealed the promise. "Always mine." Outside, the Undercity stretched beneath them, their kingdom and their responsibility. Above, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance, and between them the bond sang with joy and love and absolute certainty. They'd survived fire and war and transformation. They'd found each other against all odds, two souls meant to be together finally united. And now they had forever to explore that connection, to build their life together, to love each other with the intensity that only immortals could truly understand. The flames had swallowed her village, but from the ashes, Felicity had risen as something new, something powerful, something eternal, and the vampire king who'd carried her through that fire would walk beside her through whatever fires came next, protecting and cherishing and loving her for all the long centuries ahead. It was more than enough. It was everything. And as they stood together overlooking their kingdom, hands clasped and hearts bound, Felicity knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. Not just to accept the transformation, but to love Hadrian, to trust him, to build this life with him. The fire had taken everything from her, but the vampire king had given her the world.